Hello, dear students. We will continue our next lecture on physiology, that is on the gastric digestion. Last time we have seen oral digestion, which takes place in the mouth, and salivary secretions are mixing with the food, forming bolus, and food passes into the stomach. Now in stomach, the gastric digestive actions are taken place. So which are these? We will see one by one. The digestion takes place in the stomach is called as gastric digestion. Here, the food is churned over and mixed with various hormones, then various enzymes, including pepsinogen, which begins the digestion of protein, then hydrochloric acid, and other chemical elements, and all of which are also secreted further down the digestive tract. The stomach has an average capacity of 1 liter, varies in shape, and is capable of considerable distension. When expanding, this sends stimuli to the hypothalamus, means brain part, posterior brain, we can call it as a hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain and nervous system controlling hunger. Hypothalamus controlling the hunger and the desire to eat. After receiving the bolus, means chewed food material and masticated food material mixed with saliva, after receiving the bolus, the process of peristalsis is started. Peristalsis means a step-by-step gradual passage of the food into the tube, mixed and churned with gastric juices, and the bolus is transformed into a semi-liquid substance called as chyme. The food mixed with saliva, lubricated, and called as chyme. Generally, it is a chyme. Means in stomach, the 4 digestive juices are mixed. First is saliva, second is hormones, third is pepsinogen hormone, digestive juice, and then hydrochloric acid. HCl is also secreted in the stomach to kill the bacteria and some worms. The gastric glands. The glands, as I told you that there are different glands present in the, and hormones send the signal from brain, hypothalamus to the target organ for the secretion of the digestive juice. So there are many different gastric glands. They are located in the stomach wall and they secrete many different chemicals or digestive enzymes or digestive juices. For example, parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Then chief cells secrete pepsinogen. Then goblet cells secrete mucus. Then argentafin cells secrete serotonin. Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. Chief cells secrete pepsinogen. In this way, I have highlighted these 4 type of different gastric glands which secrete gastric juices in the stomach. Mainly parietal cells, chief cells, goblet cells, and argentafin cells. So these are the 4 main secretory elements or glands that secrete different digestive materials. And they also argentafin cells secrete serotonin as well as histamine. And G cells or gastric cells secrete the hormone gastrin. G cell instead of G cell, we can say gastric cell. Gastric cells secrete the hormone gastrin. So please remember the word gastrin, because hormones in the body triggers the digestive activities by using the hormones, and these hormones are stimulated to the cells for the secretion of the special factors by these glands or cells. The wall of the stomach is impermeable to most substances although does absorb some water or electrolytes or certain drugs are also alcoholic material. These all the chemicals take part in the digestion in stomach. At regular intervals, a circular muscle at the lower end of the stomach, called as the pylorus part or pyloric stomach, opens and allows the small amount of food material, not known as chyme, to enter the small intestine. Because chyme is completed, it's a digestive process by these four different secretory material secreted by these cells, and therefore we call it as a now known as chyme. Okay, actually it is a chyme. Then bile juice or bile secreted by the bile duct converts the fat globules, because bile is the digestive juice which digests generally fat, and therefore bile converts the fat globules into the fat droplets, and these fat droplets are uh, converted through a process called as emulsification. Means bile facilitate or carried out the process of emulsification. Fats are broken down into diglycerides and monoglycerides. Fats are broken down into, as we have seen in carbohydrates, monosaccharide, disaccharide, then polysaccharide like glucose, fructose, maltose. In this way, the here fats are broken down by using the bile juice, which is the digestive juice secreted by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, and that releases into the stomach or at the base of stomach where the small intestine is opening, and therefore bile is in the duodenum, because the first part of small intestine is duodenum, second is jejunum, and third is ileum. In this way the digestive actions are carried out. Then pancreatic lipase, because pancreas is the another digestive gland which is located in between the loop of the intestine or duodenum, first part of the intestine, that is duodenum. So pancreas converts the triglycerides into fatty acid and glycerol. So pancreatic lipase is secreted by the pancreatic cells. Gastric digestion will continue. Physiologically, stomach can be divided into two parts, corpus and antrum. The digestion in stomach is accomplished by gastric juices secreted in the wall of the stomach and secreted in the interior lumen of the stomach by the wall of the stomach. So internal folds of the membrane in the stomach is called as rugae, where the glands are situated. Partially digested food passes into the duodenum. Duodenum is the initiation of the small intestine. So gastric glands of stomach includes the gastric cells or gastric gland cells which secrete mucosa, which secrete gastric juice, and there are three gastric glands present in the gastric system or gastric stomach wall. First is cardiac gastric glands. As we have seen, the stomach is we can divide the stomach into three parts: upper, middle, and lower. So upper part is cardiac stomach, lower part is pyloric stomach, and middle part is fundic stomach. Therefore, the glands present in upper part is called as gastric glands. The glands present in fundic gland, middle part is called as fundic glands, and the glands which are present in the last part, lower part, called as pyloric glands. So we will see one cardiac glands which are present in the stomach. Therefore, cardiac gastric glands. They secrete mucus, the sticky material like saliva, and makes the food slippery. So it passes or it slips in the digestive alimentary tract. Fundic gastric glands are true gastric glands and located in the central region of the stomach. It consists of three types of cells: chief cells or the Amazon cells, parietal or oxygentic cells, and mucous cells. So we can categorize the gastric cells or gastric glands in these three different types. So what is the function of these different type of cells? That is chief cells, parietal cells, auxiliary cells, then cell secreting cells, all these. So chief cells located at the base of the gland and secretes an enzyme pepsin and renin. Pepsin and renin is secreted by the chief cells. Then hydrochloric acid is secreted by parietal or auxiliary cells. Then third one is the pylori gland. As we have seen, that lowermost part of the stomach is called as pylorus. These glands located in the terminal region and secretes mucus which protects stomach from self-digestion. The gastric juice. We have seen salivary juice or salivary buccal digestive juice. Now the gastric juice. Gastric juice also contains 99% water, 0.5% HCl, 0.2% inorganic salts, and 0.3% organic matter. And this is the composition of gastric juice. HCl secreted by the parietal cells, which kills the bacteria, that maintains the H plus ion concentration, means we can say pH, and also provides suitable medium for the enzymatic actions. So these are the roles of different cells which secrete different gastric juices in the stomach. So what digestive action takes place in the stomach? Pepsinogen is converted into pepsin in the presence of HCl, or we can say HCl convert pepsinogen into pepsin, and the pH 1.5 to 3.5 is the range, which is the conversion range of the pepsinogen into pepsin. Next, proteins and pepsin. If the pepsin which is formed in previous reaction acts on protein material, it converts the proteins into proteases or peptones and polypeptides, because all the protein molecules join together and forms a polypeptide chain. These latter broken down into amino acids by pancreatic and intestinal secretions. These means the material which are already digested. Then prorenin is converted into renin in the form of HCl. So these are the digestive uses, these are the gastric juices. We can say digestive juices. Gastric juices are also digestive juices. So they convert the prorenin into renin. Means they also act on chemical materials or the drugs present in the stomach. So renin acts upon milk. The renin, whatever the renin is formed, it acts upon the milk proteins, casein. The protein present in the blood, the protein present or available in the milk is called as casein, and converts into insoluble form calcium paracasinate element, or we can say curd. Whenever the milk is converted into curd, the milk is converted into the curd, then what action is taken place? That is called as a renin element, which acts, or we can convert, bacteria also convert the milk into curd, but they have renin is the main element, and in that process the protein casein is disturbed, and therefore it is formed in the form of curd. We can say that renin curdles the milk, means it converts milk into curd. Then next is gastric lipase. In gastric juices, the lipase is also one of the enzyme which digests the lipid. The enzyme which digests lipid called as lipase. The gastric secretion that contains a fat hydrolyzing the enzyme known as gastric lipase. Example, foam in milk is a fat. दुधाचा जो फेस येतो त्याच्यामध्ये फॅट असते, चरबी असते, or we can say lipid असते, lipase. lipid and fat are the same words. Fats do not emulsify well in an acidic medium. Hence, emulsification does not take place to any great extent in the stomach. Therefore, the gastric digestion is being carried out. The gastric lipase is works or it works actively at the pH 5, means the range of acidic condition having a pH 5 is suitable for the digestion of fat. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. Now, intestinal digestion. The digestion takes place in the small intestine. As previously we have seen that in small intestine, pancreas and bile duct, pancreatic duct and bile duct, or we can say pancreas and liver, pour their secretion into the small intestine and digestion is carried out. This is the simple. We will see one by one. In small intestine, duodenum is a hollow jointed tube connecting the stomach to the jejunum. As previously I told you that duodenum, jejunum and ileum are the parts of small intestine. And then rectum and colon are the parts of large intestine. So both bile and pancreatic duct, the bile juice secreted by liver stored in the gallbladder called as bile juice, and pancreas is the gland which secretes the pancreatic juice, and the duct which carries it called as pancreatic duct. And both these bile and pancreatic juice pour or secreted in the intestine, particularly in the duodenum, anterior part of the stomach. The small intestine, because of its structure, provides a vast lining through which further absorption process takes place. Means the digested food is absorbed in the wall of intestine. There are large lymph and blood supply to this area and ready to transport the nutrients to the rest of the body. Digestion in the small intestine relies on its own secretions plus those from the pancreas, liver and gallbladder. So in this way the digestion is carried out. After digestion the absorption is carried out. After absorption the nutrients are transported to the rest of the body via blood supply. So this is the complete process which takes place in the duodenum. Now the duodenum receives the chyme from the stomach, and chyme is thick creamy juice which contains partially digested food, and it is processed by the digestive juices of the intestine, especially the bile and pancreatic juices. Both these acts on the food and the further process of digestion takes place. Now this picture is clearly showing the movement of peristalsis. As previously we have discussed, the food passes in the esophagus by peristalsis. This is the bolus or food particle. Whenever the food particle comes here, it bulges out, it swells out, and whenever the food particle passes to the next, it contracts down. So this is the contraction, this is the bulging, this is the bulging. This bulge is continuous and passes here. As the food passes, the tube is bulging. So this is called a peristalsis movement. So in intestine, the food also passes through peristalsis. In esophagus, the bolus also passes through this process. So movements of small intestine. In intestine, different muscular activities occurs, like mixing, contraction and propulsion of the, or we can say propulsive contraction. This is the propulsive contraction. As the food is propelled down, it is enlarged. It propelled down, it enlarges. It propelled down, it enlarges continuously. This is called propulsive contraction, and this is the propulsive contraction and relaxation. In mixing contraction, the chyme is mixed with intestinal secretion by two types. The chyme or the solid part mixed by saliva and digestive enzymes is secreted by two ways: segmentation movement and pendular movement. So what are these two? We will see one by one. In segmentation movement, the rhythmic annular constrictions occurring which appears locally but disappears quickly without any further movement is called as segmentation movement. Whereas in pendular movement, the contractions of longitudinal muscles first on one side and then on the other side. Means it is not continuous and regular, but it is alternate, we can say, to the mix the chyme with intestinal matters. And in this way, the food material is mixed. The contractions the contractions are peristaltic in nature. These contractions are peristaltic in nature. As soon as the food is passing, it bulges down. As soon as it passes to the neck, it contracts hardly and then comes relaxed to the normal position. So, muscles first on one side and then on the other side to mix the chyme with intestinal matters, and the contractions are peristaltic in nature and serves to move the intestinal contents by peristaltic rushes, or we can say peristalsis movement. In this way, the intestinal digestion takes place. Now, the pancreas. So, the next part we will see in the next period. Till then, see you.